What's up guys, Mike here, and today we are talking about the curse of the number 2 pick. Now, this might not be a curse that many of you are familiar with, but trust me, after watching what you're about to see, I'm sure you also will believe that there is just something going on with pick number 2 in the NBA draft. And really, for an intro, that's all I have to say. So now, let's just get into this, and in this video, we are going to look at several specific cases of players and teams who have been affected by the curse of the number 2 pick. However, before we do that, I do want to show you some concrete evidence that proves that for whatever reason, number 2 picks in the NBA severely underachieve. So to start things off here, I think the most fair way to set this entire video up is to 1, begin with the 2014 draft class because they have played 5 seasons in the league and so they're somewhat established at this point, and 2, take a look at how every pick has performed in both the last 20 and 40 seasons in terms of MVPs won, championships won, All-NBA selections, and All-Star selections. So now, looking at the 20 draft classes between 2014 and 1995, we can see that when it comes to MVPs, the second pick is tied for last. In terms of titles, the second pick is tied for last. As for All-NBA selections, the second pick is just dead last by itself, and as for All-Star selections, well, the second pick is again just a dead last, which means if you're counting at home, somehow the second pick is worse than the third, 4th, 5th, and 9th picks. And when we look at the 40 seasons between 2014 and 1975, we also find that this is nothing new, because in those 40 years, the second pick does do a little better, which means we're no longer going to be looking at the 9th pick, but still, out of the top 5 picks, when it comes to MVPs, pick number 2 is tied for last. When it comes to titles, pick number 2 is just a dead last. Looking at all NBA selections, the second pick is second to last, and finishing off with all-star selections, again, the second pick is second to last. So in the last 40 years, it does look like pick number 2 outperforms pick number 4, but still, the 3rd and 5th picks have obviously been better. Which means, of course, when I found all of this stuff out, I had to take a deep dive into this curse. I had to find out what is wrong with the number 2 pick. Why have the players not only underperformed, but also do things such as ruin rosters and entire franchises? And at this point, here's what I found. And in order to structure this video, I decided to place all of the number 2 overall picks into 3 separate categories. So let's start off with category 1, the busts. Michael Kidd Gilchrist. A classic example of a player scouts said had all-star potential if he could ever develop a jump shot. As we all know, somewhere Michael Kidd Gilchrist is still out there looking for one. Derek Williams. At one point, there was actually a legitimate argument over who should be the number 1 pick in the 2011 draft. Derek Williams or Kyrie Irving. Maybe if he had gone number 1, Derek Williams would have been a good player, but instead, the curse was strong here as he played for 6 different teams in 7 seasons and is currently out of the league. Evan Turner. Of all the underachieving number 2 picks we are currently talking about, Evan Turner might be the most wealthy, as after Philly sacrificed him to the basketball gods in order to start the process, Turner did have one good season in Boston and in turn fooled the Trailblazers into signing him to a huge deal. Kind of a double curse there. Michael Beasley. If marijuana was never a thing, then Michael Beasley could have been a 10-time NBA All-Star. But in my opinion, he got lucky because the fact that it's starting to become legal in several states is really the only reason he made the NBA in the first place. Marvin Williams. In the 2005 draft, the Atlanta Hawks desperately needed a point guard, but instead chose a player that was the 6th man on his own college team. Yikes. Stromile Swift. The curse was very strong here, as after Stromile Swift was drafted 2nd overall in the 2000 draft, he would actually curse the Vancouver Grizzlies so bad that the city lost their franchise. Kind of like another player who we're about to get to, as we are now in category 2, the outliers. These are the guys that did have good NBA careers, but, well, let's just get into it. Victor Oladipo has become an all-star, but not on the team that drafted him, which is really no surprise because before this year, the Magic had recently been a train wreck of an organization. For instance, one example of this is when they traded future all-star Victor Oladipo for Serge Ibaka when they already had plenty of big men and would hilariously end up trading Serge Ibaka that very next season while, of course, Oladipo has become an all-star. Kevin Durant, a future Hall of Famer who has also been an MVP and 2-time NBA champion. At first glance, KD looks like an exception to this curse. However, we need to remember that the team who originally drafted Durant was the Seattle Supersonics, who actually lost their entire franchise just 1 year after selecting him. As for his time on the Thunder, again, KD did win an MVP with the team, but he also famously left OKC to sign with the Golden State Warriors after the Warriors had just come back from a 3-1 series deficit in the Western Conference Finals over the Thunder. LaMarcus Aldridge. We should have seen the curse coming a mile away with the number 2 pick here, because who else but the Knicks originally owned this pick? As for the team that owned this pick for the actual 2006 draft, the Chicago Bulls would actually shock the world and take a future All-Star with this pick, but then immediately were hit by the curse as they traded Aldridge to the Blazers in exchange for a bust known as Tyrese Thomas and whoever Victor Kairapa is. I'm assuming I said that name wrong, but again, who is he? Tyson Chandler, another player who was immediately traded after the draft. This time it was the Bulls who would trade away Elton Brand, a player who would almost instantly become an all-star with the Clippers, for Tyson Chandler, who did absolutely nothing notable in Chicago. Steve Francis. In the 1999 draft, the Vancouver Grizzlies would also take a future all-star in Steve Francis. However, the curse would immediately strike again as Francis refused to play in Vancouver, and so the team was forced to trade him. By the way, last time I checked, Vancouver also does not currently have an NBA team. Jason Kidd. Again, we have a Hall of Fame selection at the number 2 pick. However, after making the All-Star team in just his second season, the Mavericks would trade away Jason Kidd due to the fact that he was causing serious problems in the locker room. Allegedly, one night Kidd made plans with a girl, and that girl ended up with his teammate Jim Jackson, and Jason did not exactly take that well. To be fair though, Kidd did eventually win a title with Dallas towards the end of his career, but still. It is very interesting to note that the curse has the power to cause love triangles among teammates. Alonzo Mourning. With the Charlotte Hornets, Alonzo Mourning would establish himself as one of the NBA's top young players by making the All-Star team in both his second and third seasons. With that said, he also hated playing in Charlotte and refused to sign a contract extension, so the Hornets were forced to trade him. Now, of course, that really should be no surprise because, as we've seen, the curse of the number 2 pick causes players to hate the teams that drafted them, lose NBA franchises for entire cities, and again, cause some girl problems between teammates. You really can't make this stuff up. Moving on to the last 2 guys on our list though, Gary Payton was a Hall of Famer who actually stuck with the team who drafted him. He is one of the outliers to this curse. And finally, Isaiah Thomas. The same goes for Isaiah Thomas, who in my opinion is actually the best number 2 pick in our 40 season sample size. The reason for that is that he became the best player on a 2-time championship team with the Pistons, so nothing to complain about there. As for what happened to Isaiah after he retired, well, the Knicks don't really like to talk about that. And now finally we're at the worst of the worst. The players who probably are on the thumbnail of this video. These guys are in no specific order, so let's begin with Jay Williams. At Duke, Jay Williams was a national champion, 2-time first-team All-American, and the 2002 National Player of the Year. Unfortunately, he was also drafted second by the Bulls in the 2002 draft, and in his rookie season, he suffered a life-threatening motorcycle accident that ended his NBA career on the spot. Hasheem Thabeet. The early to mid 2010 Memphis Grizzlies teams were known as grit and grind due to the fact that the Grizzlies frontcourt duo of Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph were known for punishing teams around the basket. However, looking back at this era of Memphis basketball, it is amazing that a team built on toughness chose to draft one of the softest centers the NBA has ever seen. It's also pretty incredible to think that the Grizzlies were so confident in OJ Mayo and Rudy Gay as their long-term wings that they chose to take Thabeet instead of future MVP James Harden. James Harden! Which means yes, Memphis could have built a championship squad if they had taken Harden, but at least Hasheem Thabeet still hooks up current Grizzlies players at the Chipotle he works at. Len Bias. Getting real here, I don't want to be disrespectful to the memory of Len Bias at all, so all I'm going to say is that he was a number 2 pick who died the day after he was drafted, and rest in peace, Len. Darko Milicic. A poster child for number 2 picks everywhere, the Pistons still did win the 2004 championship this season after taking Darko ahead of Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and Carmelo Anthony. But while they did win a championship with their number 2 pick, Detroit also gave us one of the greatest what-ifs in NBA history history because the Pistons could have been a dynasty if they had taken Wade, Bosh, or Melo. And the last man on this list, of course, Sam Bowie. A lot of people have said a lot of things about Sam Bowie due to the infamous fact that he was drafted one spot ahead of Michael Jordan. He also was taken ahead of Hall of Famers Charles Barkley and John Stockton. Portland only had the number 2 pick in the first place because they lost a coin flip to the Houston Rockets for the number 1 pick. And my personal favorite story about this draft travesty was that while coaching the Olympic team, Bob Knight got the chance to coach Michael Jordan before the draft and was so impressed that he called Blazers general manager Stu Inman and begged him to take Mike. Good old Stu would reply that the Blazers needed a big man, to which Knight apparently screamed, "Then play Jordan at center." Thank God they did not, because the NBA needed Jordan drafted anywhere but number 2. And there we have it, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I also hope you're a little bit baffled because just what is going on with pick number 2? I'm a Chicago Bulls fan and I'm afraid that they're about to get the 2nd pick because, as you've seen, there have not been many cases for the number 2 pick actually performing well, especially for the team that drafted them. Anyway, with that in mind, if you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe. On this channel, I look at NBA conspiracies like this. I do NBA what ifs. I do NBA stories. Basically, if you love basketball, I can promise you will love this channel, so subscribe so you don't miss a video. If you're already subscribed, thank you so much for supporting. You're awesome. We all know it. And as always, have an awesome day, guys, and cue that music. By the way, if you're still here while the music is cued, here are 2 videos I think you are going to love watching. All you have to do is just click on either one of them on the screen right here. And other than that, guys, again, have a great day and peace.